on social media just an hour ago, and I want to tell a story based on a story that I heard. Witchcraft is real, and I'm not here to entertain anyone. I'm here to pass information. What you do with information is your business. I was involved with the only person that I think I ever loved in my life. Met him in a very unique situation. I would say I was going through my toughest time. Well mannered, well articulated, well dressed, principled person, Christian, um, family oriented, very sociable, respected by everyone, loved by everyone. It was, if you didn't like him, something was wrong with you. And he was ideal. All right, we were going out and we decided for a while, like, okay, we're going out together, we like each other. We're going to decide to start a relationship and maintain some commitment. As we made the boundaries of the relationship and it started manifest, I felt comfortable in the relationship. I had been still battling my own traumas, and so I didn't want to rush into a marriage situation until I had comfortably come over those hurdles, and that was explaining the relationship. And he understood because he had his own traumas that he was dealing with as well. And so we wanted to build our life together, starting on really nothing, starting on a new foundation because on both sides of our family, we've never seen anything like what we had because we had traumatic backgrounds that made us unique. And so we didn't have a point of reference, put it that way. And I was so comfortable with that relationship that I never had to put on a show in that relationship. I was my authentic self, and I thought he was his authentic self, and I trusted that. He went to church, I didn't go to church. He knew why I didn't go to church. We were comfortable with it. I supported him going to church because I believed that the church was a part of his development that he needed to accomplish. All right, put all of that aside. I used to drink roots from a particular roots man, and that roots man worked in the district in which he worked in. So wherever he worked, it was close enough. So on his way, I'd ask him to pick up my roots for me, and he switched out my root with something else and gave it to me. The relationship dissolved after some time because when it was time for him to propose to me, he proposed, but he didn't want to move out of his parents' house. And I was expected to live in his parents' house, and I didn't see through that. I couldn't understand that because I've never seen that done before and had a positive outcome. Mind you, today I would have probably made a different decision about it. But I thought for him, not having lived on his own long enough to develop certain independence, he needed to do that first before he decided that, okay, I'm going to do this for the rest of my life. Oh my God. This young man went out of his way, listened to a friend who's older than him, and went to what you would call an Obeah man in Jamaica and decided that he was going to tie me. How did I know about this? We had shared a child together by this time. Beautiful child. Looks exactly like him. Thank God for my spirit in her to kind of balance out certain things, but exact person. Have our own personality, but look, the difference is just gender. Anyhow, one day after he had moved on, because I decided I'm not marrying a man who's living in his mother. I'm not marrying to your mother. I'm marrying to you, and we need some privacy. We need to develop on some skill sets that we need to do independently, and you need to get out of your mother's house first. We need to do this together. At the time, we both lived in that house, and we wanted to move on. My dears, I got a job out of town, and I told him, all right, tell you what you do. I'm going to take the job out of town. I'm going to move out of town and take the job while we figure out what we're doing. Take this time to analyze what you want to do. Mind you, me moving out of town is still in another relative's house. So therefore, if you think I'm gone, you have access to the house. You're there every 2 weeks, anywhere as often as you're in that parish. I was there waiting for him to analyze what he was doing and making a decision, he decided he wanted to marry someone else. I was upset, but I had exams and I made a decision that I'm gonna choose me. If you're choosing you, I'm not going to get depressed. I had enough to be depressed about. I had enough to be down about. I was going to choose me. Mind you, the witchcraft is coming from multiple aspects. But that's a story for not for another day. Years passed and I could move on. I could move on. I didn't have any interest in other people. I tried going out with other people, even in front of his family, to cut the cords, and he couldn't cut. Anyhow, I started, my child was about old enough, let's just say old enough. And I was starting this skill training program. I wanted to learn a skill, a tangible skill, because my skills weren't tangible. And so I wanted a tangible skill to come to companion my other skills. And I was going to school. And one day I had to prepare this practical, and it took 3 days to do. And when I did it, it was late in the night, and I have to go in the next morning to school to demonstrate it. So I finished, and I was in the living room, and I turned the lights out to walk to the bedroom. When I turned the lights out to walk to the bedroom, a voice spoke to me out of thin air. A window was behind me to the veranda, what you call a patio, and I turned around to see if someone was out there, because it was too audible for me not to think that someone was there. Mind you, by this time there was a street light outside, so it was shining through the room, but my eyes had not adjusted to that level of darkness because I turned on the main light above my head. It took me a few minutes for my eyes to adjust it, and when it adjusted, I realized that there was no one there. I wasn't afraid, but I was concerned. I said, "What?" The voice said something to me. I said, "What?" The voice said, "Do this," and I did it. The voice said, "Do that," I did it. The voice said, "Do that," and I did it. I followed the steps, but the voice would not give me all the steps. It was dependent on my obedience. So it told me do point A. If I was obedient to A, then it told me B. When I followed through the process, it was instructing me to make a concoction. A concoction I had never made. And I'm good at making concoctions. I'm good at making liqueurs. I'm a coffee connoisseur. But at the same time, I do herbs and I do all of these things. But this I've never done. And it was done from basic elements in my house. And I made a concoction. He said, "Drink it," and I drank it. The voice went away and he said, "No, go to your bed." I went to my bed and I woke up. And I woke up the next morning. I had to leave early, so by this time my daughter was battling an unknown illness. She'd be vomiting green every day, raw bile coming out of her stomach every day, and she would not be able to keep anything down. Nothing is going down, right? On that day, the day that I had the encounter, I was told to do a stool sample the next morning and bring it in. I said, "No. This is an attack on me finishing school," and I'm finishing school. I'm going to school. And I'm going to school and I'm going to finish, because that was my last day. And that was the day was going to determine whether I was competent at what I was doing or not. And I'm not going to stop. And I am one of the parents that you could use my child as a carrot and dangle in front of me. And I made that decision that day. No, this is an attack and I'm going. And I went. The presentation that I needed to be there at 8 o'clock, and I had to travel 3 parishes, 100 and odd miles away. Alright, so I did it. But when I was leaving, I made breakfast for my daughter, trying to encourage her to get something in her stomach, because mummies were going to be away, and she was going to be with her grandmother, and I wanted her to eat something. And I was going to be keeping in touch by telephone while I was on my way. The child made a bite out of the sandwich. She bit the sandwich. She felt nauseous, and she ran to the bathroom to throw up again. I nursed her and put her back in her bed, and she wouldn't take anything at all. Not even water could go down. And I was torn between places. And I thought, the Spirit myself told me, "Look here, this is not what you think. She's not sick from a natural cause. She's sick from a spiritual cause. What you do in this moment is going to determine what happens." So the sandwich that she bit, I picked up, after putting her back in the bed and she fell asleep, I picked up the sandwich and ran out the door with my bag to go to this practical examination. And I grabbed the sandwich on the way. eating the sandwich on the way because I heard a taxi coming down the road. Got into the taxi, got on the bus, got to school. When I got to school, the the assessment was designed in an alphabetical order, and my last name being an L, I had to wait all the time. I spoke with my colleagues and I said, they knew my daughter was sick. And I said, my child is sick and I need to go home to do a stool test by 2 to get it to the doctor so I could at least figure out what's going on with this child. And one person refused to let me go before her. And so I was second. The instructor was late too. But by the time the instructor came, I had gotten through and gotten out of there on time. I got out of there on time and I got back to Mandeville. That's where I'm from. The child was having a picnic under the tree. The sick child I left in the bed this morning, not able to stand or walk or eat, was having a picnic under the coconut tree. I sat down on the patio and I cried. Not because I was sad, not because I was happy. I cried because I realized that the battle had been won. The aim was to keep me from becoming independent of this person and this family and this setting. All right. At that time, my child used to cry for loneliness, and so I had another child living with me, a friend of mine's daughter living with me. She was responsible for all her financial care, and she could go home whenever she wanted, but she lived in the house that I lived in, so she could have a play. Both of them could have a playmate because they were both only child at the time. And so the child had gone home for the weekend, and it was time for me to pick up the child. So I went to pick up the child. It was Saturday, and so she went home Friday. She needed to come home Saturday because her mom had somewhere to go Sunday. And so I went to pick up the child, and on my way to pick up the child, having not had breakfast, I just had a quarter of a sandwich. I decided to have a Malta and a patty. Something I would have eaten on a regular day. They're two of my favorites. And I felt a little nauseous. Not a little, very nauseous. And I sent, the child was with me, so I asked the child to go into the store. There was a store that I had gone in before. I said, go back into the store. They know me in there. Have a seat. If anyone asks you why you're there, tell them you're waiting on me. Don't move. Whatever happened, don't come back out here. I thought I was going to die. There were two vehicles. There was a Chevy cover-up van, and there was a Hilux van. I don't forget, the white and the blue van. I held on between the two vans because I felt like I was going to fall. And at this point, I didn't have the strength to call for help. And at this, I know I was going to fall. I was disoriented. And if I was going to fall, I didn't want the child to see me, so I didn't want to go in front of the van, so I hid between the two vans. And I knew if I fell and the crowd came down, she wouldn't be able to push through the crowd, and so she would not have seen what happened. And I started hyperventilating, and something in my stomach churned, and it churned, and it churned, and it churned, and something projected out of my stomach. Almost 7 feet from where I was standing, it fell plop on the ground. A clump, pardon my graphic language, a clump of mucus, green mucus, almost as green as this leaf, came out of my stomach. The feeling of death was over me. I felt so sick. And as it subsided, I did not even spit afterwards. My mouth was watery. It came out solid, and I felt better within seconds. And I looked at it. Out of amazement, I couldn't understand what that was. There was nothing that it looked like. It looked like nothing that I knew before. I leaned on the van and I gathered myself, and I beckoned to the child, went in front of the van, and I beckoned to the child to come out the store. And the teller who knew me asked, where are you going? And I said, no, I'm here. So they knew that I was back from wherever they thought I would have gone. And I held the child so close to me, nervous, and I walked towards where I needed to go. Before I could clear that block of building, my phone rang. It was my child's father on the phone. By this time, he had migrated. He was on the phone. We don't talk on the phone. It's not a person we're communicating. If he has to call me, he call me at the time when the child is home so he can talk to the child. We are not in any communication. So I was kind of shocked that he was calling me, and I was about to not answer. Then I answered. Mine said answer. When I answered, he said, Charm, where are you? I said, I'm on the road. He said, what are you doing? Are you sitting? I said, no, I'm walking. He said, you need to sit down. I have something I need to tell you. I said, no, I'm not going to sit down. Mind you, what happened to me a minute ago, less than 3 minutes ago, is still fresh in my mind. And I'm not sitting down. I'm not dying on my face or my ass. I'm standing up. Whatever you're going to tell me, you're going to tell me. It's going to kill me. It's going to kill me standing up. He said, okay. He said, you know, years ago when we just started going out, I went to a Obeahman and I tie you. And you need to get deliverance. As plain as day. As plain as day. I said, what? And him said, yeah, but I've been telling you need deliverance for a while. And he kept talking. And I was just listening. And he said to me, are you there? I said, yes. He said, you need to forgive me. I was still silent. He said, you hear me? I said, yeah, I forgive you already. And I said, I can't talk to you anymore. I'll call you back. I was supposed to go shopping for the kids. I couldn't. I went straight home. And it took me a week to process the information. It took me an entire week, 7 days. I sat there processing all the things that I'd gone through in the period of time that was possibly tied to that. And the hurts and the rejection, not being able to find myself. When he moved on and was married, I was stuck in his family's home like a planted tree. So I don't know if he called me back or I called him back. So if you tied me when you move on, did you not think that I deserve the right to move on? He said, but I told you you needed deliverance. I said, you go to church, I don't go to church. So when you tell me I need deliverance, you're speaking a language that I don't understand. Why didn't you tell me what you meant? He said he don't know why he did it. And he don't know what the Obeahman told him. So I asked him who and he went and he told me and all of these things. And I said, okay. And this is the tone I had. When I'm upset, I don't get loud. And I'm really cut, I don't get loud. And I let it go right there. All right, time went on. Still can't move on. A few days later, I had a dream that I needed to move. I'll talk about that dream another day. And I moved on. I moved out of that house with no money, with nowhere to go. I had to move in his relative's house, another relative's house out of town, because I had to move from the location. And I moved from the location. And life went on. Mind you, I want to tell you what caused all of that. When the weeks prior to me having the experience, I had been fasting, like intermittent fasting, 12 hours of the day, every day. That was what was changing my circumstances. I was fasting and praying for direction to break the yoke over my life, and that was what was happening. So witchcraft is real. He confessed it. The evidence were clear. I just didn't know where it was coming from. Everything that I touched failed. Everything that I touched failed. And at this time, I didn't even believe in witchcraft. I didn't even know it was real. But everything that I touched would come to nothing. And he would laugh, a little sinister laugh, over some things that I would try and fail. I remember I wrote a note one day, and then I write fast and I think fast, so my head will go faster than my hand. And I spelled the word first as Frist, Frist, and the way he laughed in such a demeaning way. And I was like, why would you find that so funny? Instead of telling me I spelled it wrong, why would you? And I realized those things were real. Some things that happened were real. And years after, I said to him, you asked me to forgive you, but you never apologized. You never told me that you were sorry. You're asking me to forgive you, but you're not sorry. And I said, until you are sorry, until you apologize and you turn from that and repent from it, the chaos that you've caused me will return to you. Didn't even know what I was saying. That's a story for another day, and I don't need to gloat over things. And I'm not trying to get clout. I'm telling people, wake up, because the people you let in your beds and the people you let in your spirit, they are the people who have the potential and the connection to you. So when you see things going around in your life, open your eyes and look. You'll be surprised where it's coming from. My name is Charmer, your vibrational healer and your spiritual developmental coach. Encouraging you and bidding you, your conscience, bidding you to shine brighter and illuminate your space.